Matthew Shepard. I mean, basically the people who were the decade's most prevalent, well-known advocates, alive or dead, for gay rights. And anyone who answers, we celebrate Pride because it's a month with good weather, is not helping getting gay rights at all. If you don't know what's happened before and what's happening now, you can't make a better place for tomorrow. And if you forget history, if you can't talk about it, if you can't teach it, if you can't know it, and you have to fight against bigots to have it taught in schools, I think we're going backwards instead of forward. Trump is eroding the wonderful equality, not complete equality, but a lot of ways of equality for the LGBTQ plus population. Everyone, regardless of orientation, race, or beliefs, or gender, has a right to live the way they want in a legal, good way. And just because something is legal and you don't agree with it, doesn't mean you have a right to get bigotry legalized. I don't care what your beliefs are, but if you use your privilege to protest and get laws signed or vote for laws that discriminate against people's human rights, that makes you a bigot. And if you're signing things into laws and voting for legislation that discriminates against trans people or anybody, you're a bigot. I used to be a bigot, but unlike most people in that group, I educated myself. I realized I was a bigot, and in some ways, I still have some prejudice, because you can't be raised in a homophobic, white supremacist family, church, and religion and it not stay with you much longer than you want it to. Last month, June of 2025, was the first year I celebrated Pride. 31 years old. Do you know how far I've come to be comfortable or not even think about what's wrong with this? Used to be, I thought there was a problem. Now, I don't have a problem. I feel a little bit awkward because it's so different from how I was raised. Maybe next June, I can bring it upon myself to put a flag out somewhere. I mean, I'm trying to move toward being more inclusive. I recently, last month, called myself an ally for the first time. Not only leaving my religion, I'm changing a lot of things about myself. And it's not just about when Pride or why Pride happened. It's learning what happened before, during, after, and what's most likely to happen. Because no matter how many steps forward you take toward equality, there will always be religious, conservatives, fundamentalists, secular groups, hate groups that don't want you to have the basic protections under the law. My own mother told me last month, gay people shouldn't have legal rights. And I responded, if everyone is an equal under the law with the same protections, the same assets, the same equalities, what's to stop one person who has the more equality to hang someone from a fence who doesn't have as much equality? I was referencing Matthew Shepard, but she had no clue what I was talking about. We need to stop telling people that my way of life is better than your way of life. And if you have a problem with the way someone is living, you're the one with the problem. As long as everyone is living a legal, healthy life, who cares? Instead of worrying how people have sex or who they live with, maybe stop indoctrinating and isolating your kids and teach them the realities of how some people who are white and wear a suit and preach in a pulpit is most likely to hurt your kids. Because the people who scream the loudest about indoctrination of children are most likely isolating and indoctrinating their kids. And if you want more history about queer history, racial history, minority history, world history, or just in the US, Wikipedia is a good place to start. Every week, I choose a new topic in American history to learn more about the different minorities. You're never too young or too old to educate yourself. And the only person over 18 who you really have no excuse. You have Google. You have libraries. People have books in their own house. There's Amazon. There is no excuse for not knowing something. The only excuse is, I never knew I didn't know. And that was me. But at the end of the day, anything that hate groups don't want taught in schools is because they're afraid that the knowledge will erode their privilege. They don't really care about the kids. If they did, there wouldn't be so many priests and pastors touching kids. People wouldn't be under the patriarchy in church. Women would be preachers, teachers, and missionaries. Queer history is important because every group's history is a valid viewpoint and learning tool, so we can learn from what we did poorly and what we did well. And the people who are always on the wrong side of history want to remove educational information, burn books, remove books. It's pretty close to being Hitler as you can be. Because Hitler persecuted trans people and eroded their rights. How is that any different from Trump? And Trump learned from Roy Cohn it was after the Lavender Scare, how to torment people who aren't heterosexual. How people can vote for someone who learned how to be a politician from the most hated man of the last century, who tormented and caused the deaths of hundreds of gay government workers, is beyond me. But now that you voted for Trump, he's out there, we all gotta live with it. I'm just going to educate myself. And when you're educated, you don't fall for things like make America great again. Because educated people with critical thinking knows that there was never a time to return to, because we've never been great. We've just been white and racist. And we're getting closer to where we want to be, but we're so far away. And queer history is so important. It's not more important than Black history or Latino history or white history. It's not more important than women's history. It's equal. The difference is, why is it so hard to teach it compared to Black history and white history? Because history shouldn't be viewed as what happened with white people. It should be viewed as what happened to human beings. And as long as you view history as, does it make us look good or make us look bad, that's racism. And if you're uncomfortable with how your group of people handled history, suck it up. Your kids need to know. And if you're only teaching things you agree with to your kids, they're going to be intellectually stunted, because I was. I've never learned algebra. I've never learned evolution, feminism. Socially, if you don't understand and learn certain things, you will have academically, emotionally stunted children. Because when they go to college, they can't cope because they don't know how. They don't know about certain history, sciences. They don't understand how the world works objectively because they've never known anything but creationism. Unless it's factual, be careful what you take your kids out of school. If you found out that your kids are going to be learning sex education that isn't factual, which is legal, by the way, less than half of the U.S. states requires consent and factual sex education to be taught to minors. I could understand a parent responsibly removing their kids from sex ed because it's not factually correct or helpful. I could understand people removing a child from a class who's teaching creationism instead of evolution, because one thing's a myth, the other thing is a fact. I just don't like it when parents or guardians remove their kids from class. Because even if it's not true, let your kid experience different ways of view. My parents wouldn't let me read Greek mythology because it didn't have to do with their beliefs. My parents wouldn't let me watch secular movies because it impacted their beliefs. I was